German Chancellor Angela Merkel has cancelled plans for a stricter pandemic shutdown over the Easter break. Following an unexpected crisis meeting with state leaders, Merkel said the hastily drawn-up plans were her own mistake. This comes just a day after leaders had announced a 5-day hard lockdown from April 1st, which would have shut most shops and church services. But they faced criticism and confusion over how the measures would have been enforced. There was also anger at domestic holidays being restricted, while some international trips were still allowed. Here's Chancellor Merkel speaking at a press conference just a short while ago.
A mistake must be acknowledged as such, and above all, it must be corrected as soon as possible. At the same time, I'm well aware that this entire situation is causing added uncertainty. I deeply regret this, and I ask all citizens to forgive me.
Let's bring in our chief political editor, Michaela Küfner, who's following this story for us. Michaela, head of government claiming her own decision was a mistake, asking for forgiveness even. That's highly unusual, isn't it?
Yes, that's quite a remarkable move. It was a statement. She didn't take any questions. And the last time she did this was when she made a statement against Russia over the Navalny poisoning. At the same time, this is rather unique because she stressed that this was her mistake and her mistake alone. After all, this is a piece of paper virtually signed off on by all 16 state premiers here in Germany. It was her late-night proposal that effectively ended almost 12 hours of negotiations. And what appears to be here an issue over her leadership style. We're hearing criticism all around that this simply popped up, that people didn't have a chance to see what is coming. Also, German industry pushing back. German churches were not consulted after, and then suddenly being asked not to hold services on the most important day for Christians. So this all amounted to a policy rollback now, and this very, very public apology, clearly from a leader who is no longer in the race for the next elections. That may well make a difference. This certainly damages her leadership, while on substance, the majority of Germans were still behind an ever tougher lockdown.
So what else, besides this apology, what else did Merkel say factually?
Well, basically, for now, she's sticking with the formula that was hammered out, looking at the 7-day incidence rates here in Germany. That emergency break, which will roll back some of the openings that had been agreed on, will now kick into place all around the country. But it certainly isn't a picture of unity at all, and it actually raises more questions that need to be debated. Still open is what happens about foreign trips. This is something that Angela Merkel was also set against, and this only added to the confusion that Germans were able to travel to Mallorca while they were not able and still aren't able to travel within their own state. I would expect some more clarification there, but clearly there's an end to Merkel leading this crisis management. This is all quite clearly and visibly and tangibly for everyone now down to every individual state, something she wanted to avoid right at the beginning of this crisis and throughout.
Oh, you just mentioned it. Is she just maybe saying that she's fed up, and is she saying to the state premiers, "I've had enough of this, and you deal with it"?
No, that's not her style at all. She's a woman who very much emphasizes the duty. She's a moderator and she likes to forge consensus. This was very unusual for her to spring this upon her state premiers in the middle of the night. And it clearly backfired not just on her, but also on those individual state premiers. Although there was some applause from experts, also from the Medics Association here in Germany, which felt that this wave breaker lockdown was needed. So this is more and more about leadership style rather than the concrete results of this gathering, and it raises yet more questions which will now be solved very much regionally. So it's a shift in how Germany deals with this crisis, and it clearly is a crack in Angela Merkel's leadership, well, this living legacy that she is, and it raises a lot of questions how she will try to lead this over the coming months, because she's lost a lot of credibility here.
Michaela Küfner, chief political editor there. Thank you for this analysis. Michaela just mentioned the medical profession. Let's speak now to Dr. Uwe Janssens. He's the head of the German Association of Critical Care and Emergency Medicine. Dr. Janssens, looks like the Easter shutdown isn't going to be as strict as we expected. What do you make of this U-turn now? What does it mean for you?
So the German Interdisciplinary Association of Critical Care Medicine and Emergency Medicine, we said weeks ago, before the last meeting of Chancellor Merkel with prime ministers of the 16 states, that we said to go on with the lockdown until end of March. The decision 3 weeks ago was to open. So we acknowledge that the infection rates rises daily, and now we are above 100 incidents for per 100,000 7 days. So it was clear that they had to stuck to the decisions 3 weeks ago. We also said that this was quite a good decision to do a wave breaker lockdown, as your correspondent just named it, over the Easter days. But on the other hand, we have to acknowledge that the decisions seem to be not very popular, and many people, politicians and as well the inhabitants of Germany, they are not quite satisfied with this decision. So I was quite astonished to just hear this new decisions, and that will mean, and that was quite good formulated by your correspondent in Berlin, the ups and downs in the decision. And at this moment, I think everybody is dazzled, and we are looking in the next days. Our obligation as physicians is to heal people, to save them from COVID-19. We are not politicians. The decisions which are to be made, they should secure the people from getting the infections. And
can I just interrupt you there? Without these strict lockdown measures in place, what are you seeing coming for German hospitals, and how far away are they from breaking point, especially the intensive care units?
So we see that the last 7 to 10 days, the numbers of COVID-19 patients is rising, not as quick, but the number is rising. So if you don't stuck to lockdown, you let the people go without any stopping and go to shops, we will see that the infection rates will rise. So Professor Wheeler from the Robert Koch Institute stated 2 weeks ago that he fears that the number of infections per day will be above 30,000 a day around about Easter. That would be quite much. At the moment, 2.5 to 3% of these numbers will need intensive care therapy. So this would be a high number 12 to 14 days after Easter. So in the intensive care medicine, we always see the developments, and 10 to 14 days later, we see what happens with intensive care medicine. So we said at the moment we have rising figures, and we must state that the British mutation, the B117, is quite much more infectious, and it seems to be more aggressive. So we have a lot of old people vaccinated at this moment, but the people between 60 and 80 years, they are not vaccinated at the moment. So they are at risk, and we fear that they get the infection with the B117, and that will take a bad course when they get COVID-19.
Dr. Uwe Janssens, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us.